Grand dawning, great rising, Cleveland and the rest of planet Earth. Welcome to another episode of 360 Info Network, brought to you by Larchmere Cultural Arts. We're going to give you all the details on the Larchmere Cultural Arts Festival coming up and a few other things. But before we do that, let me introduce you to the creator and founder of 360 Info Network, Brother Hamptonio. Hamptonio?
Greetings, everyone. What you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself, and what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself, and what you know of yourself depends on what you've been told of yourself. We got a history show for you today, so you want to stop everything you're doing and tune in to this show here. We got a great guest. Before that as well, I want to thank everyone for coming out to the book signing. We sold out all the books. I got some more books on order, and Action Network, National Action Network is maybe talking about, and local chapter here is doing another book signing. So I keep you posted with that. So I'd like to thank you again for coming out to the book signing and purchasing the books. I think it's beneficial to the community to give everybody an inside track on police culture. Again, great show for you today. And with that being said, let's get started.
All right. Just got a few announcements to make. First of all, just want to let you know about the Larchmere Cultural Arts Festival. That's going to take place on July 17th through the 19th at Larchmere Arts. And trust me, we have a powerful presentation to bring to you. We're going to have an exhibition called Of the Diaspora, Melanin in Motion, and that's going to be followed by a musical performance involving my brother Elijah Gilmore and vocalist Kai Love. So we're going to be making music on that Friday night. On Saturday, we have an author's showcase, which will feature Brother Alan Neville, Akil Marshall, Connie Perun, and Rosary Kennedy. So we've got 4 authors. Then we're going to have a shorts film festival. There are going to be international films. We got a filmmaker all the way from Uganda. We have another filmmaker who has done a fantastic documentary. She's only 14 years old. We're looking forward to seeing that. Her name is Leonie Brown. We also have some local filmmakers, Wayne Smith, Matthew Thompson, and some others. And then we're going to have 4 short plays by Dr. Mary Weems, Michael Oatman, Arian Hodges, and Christopher Johnston. And that will be followed by a poetry showcase by Poetry Unplugged and the Sparrow's Fortune. And then on Sunday, we're going to acknowledge the Transformative Art Fund projects. We're going to bring in some of the folks who participated in that. We're going to have also a musical performance by Ida Weston, and we're going to do a digital photography exhibition that will feature the works of a local photographer by the name of Emmanuel Wallace. You may know of him. He shoots for Cleveland Scene magazine. So more than that, we're going to have some vendors and some other great things that will be happening that weekend. You can go to the Larchmere Arts Facebook page. There is a pinned post with a QR code, and you'll be able to get your tickets for that. It's a 3-day pass, and it's only $25, and that will get you in on all 3 days. So that's it for the Larchmere Cultural Arts Festival. And now we will get into the show. We have a guest that we have wanted to have on the show for quite some time. I know he's been on Brother Hamptonio's radar for some time, and thanks to our brothers and sisters in New York and Detroit and Chicago, the Hoppy Film Movement, we have him with us today. He is Brother Robin Walker. Welcome to 360 Info Network, my brother. I'm going to just share a few things with our audience about you so that they get a better sense of who you are, and they can be thankful that on this day, July 4th, 2026, instead of celebrating the 4th of July, we are celebrating the visit of Robin Walker to 360 Info Network. He's known as the Black History Man, and he was born in London, but he's also lived in Jamaica. He's an entrepreneur, publisher, educator, and author. From 1987 to 1990, he read economics at the London School of Economics. In 1991 and 92, he studied African World Studies with the brilliant Dr. Femi Biko, and later with Kenny Bakie. Between 1993 and 94, he trained as a secondary school teacher at Edge Hill College, linked to the University of Lancaster. In 2006, he wrote the seminal When We Ruled. It is the most advanced synthesis of ancient and medieval African history ever written by a single author. In 2011, Black Classic Press of Baltimore published a U.S. version of this book. Between 2013 and 2025, he followed this with When We Ruled, second edition. When We Ruled Study Guide and Reading Plan, Blacks in Science, Volumes 1, 2, and 3, Blacks in Religions, Volume 1 and 2, The Rise and Fall of Black Wall Street, and the 7 Key Empowerment Lessons, The Musical Tradition in Early Black Literature, 19 Lessons in Black History, A History of Africa, African Ancient Origins, and the ALCS award-winning Black History Matters. He also wrote 4 books in collaboration with Everyday Life in an Early West African Empire, African Mathematics, History Study Guide and Classroom Lessons, Black British History, Black Influences on British Culture, 1948 through 2016, and 30 Black History Icons. In 2022, he co-founded the online adult education business, The Black Secret, which teaches Black history and African heritage to adults. He's delivered classes and lectures for the Department of Education, Department of Transport, National Audit Office, Meta Evercore Victoria and Albert Museum, the Petrie Museum of Egyptian Archaeology, Unison, Jaguar Land Rover, Sky UK, and Schroders, among many others. So I just read all of it. I hope you can appreciate the depth and profundity of all that this brother has written and has brought into the world. And with that, again, we welcome the 360 Info Network brother, Robin Walker. Antonio?
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, again, I just want to personally say it again and publicly. It's an honor to have you on the show, my brother. I've been wanting to get you on the show for a long time, but I didn't know how to connect with you. So I appreciate you, brother, and your great work and your research and your dedication, my brother. And we know in these days, Black folks have a real love for their people and dedication, because a lot of times you get a lot of pushback from your own people, but you got to keep moving forward and stay on the mission. And as far as myself is concerned, I made a pact with the Creator to keep talking about it and to keep engaged into the struggle. So I appreciate you, brother, for coming on the show. First off, I would like to what I think is very interesting, and I think our audience needs to know a little bit about it, because I think we're going to break some of our European brothers' hearts when we start talking about the Black presence in Europe. And we tend to give them Europe by default and saying Africa or the southern equator is Black folks, and the northern equator almost like what a version of what our good brothers Shakanta Drop talk about, northern and southern cradle. But we tend to give them that Europe as their homeland and their peace. But contrary to belief, that Black folks was all up in Europe and doing things, and some of the names and Irish names and coats of arms and all those things was actually Black folks was there. So can you expound on that a little bit, or bring us up to date with that?
It's a very, very complicated and a very, very controversial topic. But yes, if you look on European coats of arms, there are more Black people on those coats of arms than one would expect. And who those Black people are and what they're doing on those coats of arms is no one has any real explanation for what that is. If you take, for example, Britain's royal family, they go under the name of Windsor, but their actual name is Saxe, Coburg, Gotha. And then if you look at the crest of Coburg, in fact, I would recommend you do this now, look it up. Coburg, Koburg. Pull up the images of the crests of Coburg. And yeah, if you could do this right now, Antonio and Vince, what do you see? The crest of Coburg.
I think our good brother Vince is working on it.
Yeah, I'm looking for it, but proceed.
No, because here's why. Because you need to see it. Because otherwise, you're trusting me. I don't want you to trust me. I want you to see it for yourself.
Yeah, because that tends to, that I guess that changes the whole game of, how we actually look at Europe, and we tend to, as Black folks, tend to stay away from that and just tend to, concentrate our efforts and our history into the southern parts of Africa, and we still having debates about if the Egyptians was Black or not. So
Mhm.
let
Right.
alone.
So have we found this crest yet?
Yeah, just 1 second.
There
There
we
we
go.
go.
No. Go to image search so that you can see them. Image search.
Okay.
Type in KOBURG and image search.
And some of our audio listeners, you won't be able to see it, but we're going to describe it to you when we get it.
Yeah, when we get it.
That's for sure. Yeah, because I remember watching a documentary of someone coming on, and I was just blown away with he was just showing image after image of this. Actually, they had ceremonies and everything with the black face and all of this. Let's go up in Europe today. I wondered if this could be the reason why a lot of people who travel to Europe, black as far as concerned, they tend to act like they was treated a little bit better
Mhm.
in that time because maybe that they know with their ancient history, where it comes from. I guess we're still working on that.
You're still working on it.
Yes, but anyway, yes, and I believe the one brother that came on he talked about the Jacobites. Are you familiar with that at all, Brother Robin?
A little bit, yeah, a
Hmm.
little bit.
Yeah, because he mentioned that in some of the names and the Irish names and things of that.
Right.
There we go.
Now, can you see now? Now we can have an intelligent discussion because you can see what I can see.
Hmm.
Yes.
Wow.
Right. Now, can you see now? Had I said that, you'd be saying, Robin, you're exaggerating. You
Mm,
can see it for yourself.
mm, mm, mm.
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing black images, y'all who can't see it in the audio world, but there are images of black folks with African earrings on and all this on the coat of arms. Wow.
Right. Now, the reason why I like to show people, you can see it there, Coburg with the name Coburg, and you can
Mm.
see the hair and the
Yes, I
monogram.
didn't see it at first. Yeah, I see it now. Yes.
Right. Now, the reason why I'm showing this is you can see now that now there's nothing to discuss here. You know, when people can say, but that's your opinion. Yeah. Deal with these imagery. And how comes Britain's royal family? This is their actual name. Now, my thing is Google this yourself to check for yourself that Coburg is indeed part of the British royal family's names. Not Windsor is what they tell everybody. Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha is what they're actually called.
Mm. Is that just still a diversion there
Yeah,
to
what it means is so people are not. These are all German names, and people are trying to come with the anglicized version. Yeah.
mm, yeah.
Okay. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this is because this is the kind of information. The real expert on this is a woman in Britain called Mary Charles, and this is
Yes.
the kind of research that she goes into.
Hmm.
Now, for the record, I can't explain that. I can't explain why the crest of Coburg has got black people on it. Same thing. One of the American companies that was involved in the Iraq War was a company called Halliburton.
Hmm.
And if you look at their crest, there's some funky stuff going on there. And the same thing is, I can't explain that either.
Hmm.
And what it means is there's a whole series of chapters of European history and heritage that most of us have no idea about, yet the heraldry is still giving us a clue to what really may have happened. And so when it comes to writing the history of Europe, especially in the Middle Ages, there's a whole bunch of question marks that we would need to address if we want to get to that history. Because the mainstream perspective is, yes, there were Black people in Europe, but they were in Spain during the Moorish conquest. And the official position is from 710 AD up until 1492,
Right.
where there were four Moorish dynasties that ruled in Spain. The second dynasty, the Almoravids, everyone agrees were from the West African deserts. The third dynasty, the Almohades, everyone agrees that they were Black Moroccans. Dynasty 1 and Dynasty 4, the Umayyads and the Beni Nazir, there's debate over who they were. But dynasties 2 and 3, there is no debate.
Yeah.
But the spread of Moors' heads across Europe is bigger than Spain and bigger than Portugal.
Is that right?
All right, you can test this yourself. Again, don't take my word for it. Look it up yourself. Image search. Look up the Corsican flag, Corsica. You want to do that now?
Okay, I think my good brother Vince is on it. He's the, like I told you, he's the technical man here.
Yeah. Again, use the image search so it's clear.
We got it. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Yeah, we got to fill in the dead air with conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, when you've done that, sir, if you can find the Sardinia flag. So you've got Corsica is our first one we're looking for, and Sardinia. And again, there are questions over what is that imagery. Okay, so that's Corsica, yes? Now, can you see the power of you finding it yourself? So this isn't me telling you, this is you seeing it yourself.
Wow.
Okay, so that's Corsica. Can we find Sardinia, sir?
Yeah, right. give me a moment.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And you know, this when you talk about the history of Europe, and you know, they always get, you know, in America here, they give us an account for all, you know, that some of the things that was going on in Europe, and of course all the wars and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that the other one, Sardinia? Okay.
That's Sardinia, yeah.
Wow. I wish you guys that's listening to this could see this.
Right, because seeing it is a completely different conversation, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
See, me telling you is, I don't believe you. Now take a look for yourself. And I didn't tell you where to look. You took a look. Those images came up, right?
That's
yes,
correct.
And for those who are listening, the flag of Sardinia is known as the Four Moors, Moors, and it depicts 4 Black people, not anything else. It is black ink on that fabric.
Yeah, the images is not dirty. You know, it's not. It was black people.
Or if it was dirty, the dirt just happened to collect on their faces.
Yeah, just right on their faces.
All the white cotton on the
flag. And some of those images got white banners around their head, but their hair is black with the white, you know, so because I remember back, you know, somewhere one of the lectures was talking about that was some of the common things in Egypt, why the people were black. Oh, it was the soot or something to that nature. And he said, well, how come the whites of their eyes are white then? You know, right. why didn't it affect that? But looking at that, Brother Walker, you know, it seems to be the same play, the same game on most of the planet. Why is this major cover-up? You know, why the major cover-up? Is this to to keep pronounce that whole white supremacy, or to give them a space in history, because they got all that stuff in the museums, and
Yeah.
God knows what's in what's in people's private museums. What's your thoughts on that?
The main thing is as you rightly said at the beginning of the session, what you think about yourself determines what you believe and what you believe you can achieve. And you will come to the conclusion that you can't achieve very much if the historical record says you're not in the historical record.
Mm-hmm.
And until um, Professor W.E.B. Du Bois put pen to paper in 1915 and wrote The Negro. And then he wrote another book called Black Folk Now and Then. And then he wrote another book called The World in Africa.
Yeah, that's the one I
And
read.
then you had other scholars, Drusilla Dungy Houston wrote Wonderful Ethiopians. Then you had J.A. Rogers writing his books. And then after that, we had Professor John Coleman de Graaf Johnson. And then after that, we have the likes of Yusuf Ben Yochanan, Sheikh Anta Diop. If it wasn't for these people, I couldn't be sitting here now speaking confidently about what our history and heritage is, because these people laid the groundwork for people like me to build upon that groundwork so I can bring information to the people to show that achievement and Black history are not mutually contradictory concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Our history is a history of achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And my job is to make that history as interesting, as sexy, as I want to know this information as possible, so that we really do develop a sense of ancestral pride.
Mm-hmm.
And we really can make connections between me in London, you all in the United States, other people in different parts of the world, where we can all develop a pride in our African heritage.
Yeah, and this is just another part of the journey, I think, of, because what we used to say, some in the conscientious world talks about, Black folks is, even biblically, been to the four corners of the earth, and it's almost literally true when you actually do digging. Some of his scholars and historians say when you go back to most of these societies and you dig, you're going to find some Black influences in these particular areas, regardless, in Russia, Poland. Why they have the worst, in Russia and Poland, the Black Madonna and Child up in there, and he's supposed to be in the Vatican. I'm hearing that these surnames, a lot of the surnames, Black folks were knights, and you don't see that on TV, cardinals and saints and things like that. It's just, this has been a covert and overt plan that they've been brainwashing us with for quite a long time. Can you speak a
Can I
little
jump
bit?
in there, sir? Can I jump in?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you why I think the resistance to showing this information. And I think African Americans are the key to the resistance. And I'll tell you what the issue is. Think about what we've seen in the 20th century, right?
Mm-hmm.
20th century, African Americans in slavery right up until 1865.
Mm-hmm.
1910, you all are creating the Harlem Renaissance. During the Harlem Renaissance, you've got people like Harry Lawrence Freeman writing operas that are up there with Wagner. They even called him the colored Wagner. Now imagine if you're a European and you see that 1.5 generations away from slavery, what are you going to think? Then
I got to slow these people down.
right. Then you've got people like Duke Ellington taking the music of blues and turning it into the highest art form imaginable. Then you've got people like Marian Anderson. They call her the world's finest contralto concert singer of the first half of the 20th century. Then you've got people like Dr. William Grant Still taking blues and fusing it with classical music to create a halfway house between blues and classical, and writing symphonies based on that. Then you've got all the writers. Now, if you were a European and you saw that you took your foot off the necks of African Americans for that little moment, and look how much progress they were making. You all know Madam C.J. Walker, yeah?
Yes.
Madam C.J. Walker is presented in African American circles as the first great millionairess, yeah? That's not true. She wasn't the African American first. She was the first. I checked this.
Oh, really?
Look in the old Guinness Book of Records. In the Guinness Book of Records, she's not the first African American millionairess. She's the first millionairess. Do you follow? That's a bigger achievement.
Yes.
Now, obviously, there were female millionairesses before her, but they either inherited the money or they married the money. They didn't make the money.
Gotcha.
See the difference?
Yes, it is.
Now, what they're now saying in the Guinness Book of Records is she might not have been the first, but she's in the first 4. Does that make sense? This is what they're saying now. And in the first 4, you know her rival, Annie Malone, Annie Porro. You know that when Madame Walker created her hair care business, she ripped off another black woman called Annie Malone or Annie Porro.
Okay.
Annie Porro is one of the other of the 4.
Yeah, the contendants of that. Okay.
Do you see? So even if it wasn't Madame Walker, of the 4 first millionairesses in the world who were self-made, 2 of them were African Americans. Are we feeling this? And
Yes.
again, this is the Harlem Renaissance period. So look at it from a Eurocentric perspective. These people out of slavery, 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, by 1910, they're stepping like that. You've got to suppress that. You can't allow that to fly. All right, another example. I'm in London. One of the organizations that I have some indirect dealings with is an organization, Alpha Phi Alpha. And one of their founders, I gather, was a architect called Vertner Woodson Tandy. Vertner Woodson Tandy built Madame Walker's mansions. There's a townhouse in New York, and there's a mansion outside New York called Villa Lewaro. You're listening to this, Google Villa Lewaro. Take a look. This is an African-American architect, 1.5 generations outside slavery.
Wow.
And as I said, if I was a European and I saw that, it was like, we got to stop this. We got to put a stop to this.
And that's amazing. And that's and the same game, same plan. It seemed like it was taking place in other parts of the world. The same thing, and it's amazing to me. You know, I don't know what the percentage was back then, but even looking at it today, you know, making up 12, to 14% of the world's population, and got their hands going around the whole world, claiming stuff, taking people's history, claiming it to be theirs. Going down to parts of Africa, recreating images, lightening them up to make it look like them, and that leads me to my next question. And we kind of getting out of Europe a little bit, but and dealing with those images that you see, and I guess this people need to know when they see those images like that, they got to think about timeline. Would you agree with me on what era? Because they need to know what was the ruling government or the ruling people at those particular time with those images. because they say, you know, the Greeks came in and emulated everything that they see. And I always used to tell people that, you remember when we were studying history, they always say in Greek they call them this. So, and our good brother Asa Hilliard and them would say that the Greeks was great name changers. Would you agree with that?
Absolute fact. Absolute fact. So that if we're writing the history of ancient Egypt, a lot of the terms that we use are coming from the Greek. So when we're looking at what was the ancient Egyptian capital city, people say Memphis. That's the Greek version of the name. The other capital, Thebes, that's a Greek version of the name. And a lot of the place names, a lot of them are just Greek version of this, Greek version of that. When we're talking about the deities of ancient Egypt, we use names like Osiris, Greek version of the name, Isis, Greek version of the name, Thoth, Greek version of the name. And unfortunately, the Greek versions have become so intertwined into the conversation. We have to work to extricate them from the conversation. Let me say something about that. A few years ago, an organization in London, and the organization was called the African Heritage Forum, commissioned me and commissioned some other people to work on producing a book that can be used in primary schools on ancient Egypt that strips away the Greco-Roman terms as far as it was possible to strip away the Greek and Roman terms. And we produced a book called From Name's Kemet to Cleopatra's Egypt. And if people want to see this book, go on the African Heritage Forum. You can do this right now, African Heritage Forum. It's a website in Britain. And there's a page which has got the one of the publications. One of them is called From Name's Kemet to Cleopatra's Egypt. You can download that for free. It's a full color book that we produced for primary age school children. But just because it's for primary age, don't think that you know this information. You don't. Yeah, don't come with you know this stuff. You don't.
Okay.
And in that book, we made a whole point of before the Greco-Roman period, we used strictly indigenous names. And after the Greco-Roman period, we use Greek and Roman names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but brother, and touching, just digressing just a second, because I wanted to talk about it, kind of skipped over that a little bit. How is they dealing with the whole discovery of the Cheddar Man thing?
Yeah, that's upset a lot of people. I'm not even gonna lie. That has upset a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And what was so shocking about the Cheddar Man stuff is that Black people had nothing to do with its discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to do with the DNA. It was the people at the Natural History Museum in London. Not only did they do it, they made a television documentary about it. And the television documentary, before it launched, made the news. So it was all over the news.
Mm.
And then it turned out it wasn't just Cheddar Man. There was another set of skeletons that were found in the country next door. Right next to England is Ireland. And they found some very similar looking remains. And then an article came out on Russia Today that in Sweden, they found some very similar remains. So yes,
Wow.
Cheddar Man and his Irish and Swedish cousins are changing the game.
I, I don't know what they're going to do when all of this information come out like this. Is
Yeah,
it's
but
interesting.
but the joke is this did make national news.
Wow.
So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't hidden away somewhere. And one of the newspapers that ran the story, there's a very right-wing conservative newspaper called the Daily Mail. They went with it. And this is a right-wing Trump supporting newspaper, they ran with it.
Hmm. Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. We're gonna get our brother Vincent in this conversation and get into some of your recent research and going to West Africa and some of the empires there, the Timber and the books and the Timbuktu and all those particular things. But before we get into that, I know our good brother Vince may have a few questions for you as well.
Yeah, there are quite a few things to unpack in what you revealed to us in the first 40 minutes of our program today. But one thing that's kind of been on my mind is the whole notion of Black people in America. You know, we have these divisions over here, Brother Robin. So we've got folks who identify as foundational Black Americans. We have American descendants of slavery, and then we've got another chain of folks who are all about being indigenous and so forth. And I read in the past few days that there is some controversy over the idea that we came over here before Columbus. Some are saying, you know, that that didn't happen. And there are conversations about someone from Africa navigating the Atlantic Ocean back and forth and so on. I'm just wondering, from your perspective, in light of all of the research that you've done, what are your thoughts about the idea of turning away Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's assertion that we came before Columbus?
What I would say is it needs more work. It needs more work. Um, I have big respect and big love for Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's work. But what we need to do is with every generation, in the same way that Black history today is not the same as what it was when Dr. Du Bois wrote the Negro in 1915. It's moved on, and in 100 years, we've changed the game.
Hmm.
We need to do the same thing with Professor Ivan Van Sertima's work. So when he wrote They Came Before Columbus, I believe that was 1976, 1977, something like that. We have to move it on. So that's what he had then. What are we saying now? What more research? And my argument is, can we get African American scholars, can we get scholars of goodwill to add to his findings and solidify those findings? And that's the attitude that I take. We need to move it on. And by moving it on, we should be finding more and more and more.
Hmm.
Now, here's the issue. The Olmec heads are definitely African looking faces. There's no getting around that. People can disagree, they can argue, but there's no doubt that that's what those heads are. Now, who are they and who do they represent? Professor Van Sertima said they were people from Egypt, people from Kush. Yeah? All right, so here's the question. Were they, or did they come from someplace else in Africa? Were they, or did they come from someplace else in the Black world? Don't know. These are the kinds of nailing things down that
I
needs to
see.
happen.
I see your point. I see your
Yeah?
point. Hmm.
Okay, now, the Olmecs were not Africans. The Olmecs were Native Americans. So who the heads represent, the heads represent visitors. But visitors from where? Professor Van Sertima says Egypt and Kush. How do we know that they weren't from someplace else in the Black world? These are the kinds of questions that would need to be presented.
Hmm. Hmm.
Similarly, the voyages from Mali to Panama, which is the stuff you're talking about, 1310, 1311, perhaps during the time of Mansa Abubakari II. There is already a lot of evidence, but can we find more? Can we find definitive? Do you see? And this is where I would suggest that more research needs to be done. But
Hmm.
I am unwilling to throw away Professor Van Sertima's book. I
Hmm.
think it should be seen as a basis to build more scholarship on top of.
Well, you know, what's also interesting is the fact that you had pyramid type structures built all over the world. And,
Yeah.
and we're talking way before Columbus and so forth and so on. So whether it was the same people or whether it was just all these different groups that had something in common that caused them to create those kinds of structures, there's so much that we don't know. And you know, really, when you get right down to it, those of us who have not done as extensive search research as you've done, all we know is what they've told us over the years. They
Mhm.
don't tell us that white folks were worshiping images of black people back in the day. When you talk about, you know, the Virgin Mary and the baby, you know, being completely black, not the whitewashed version of that we see when we look at depictions of Palestine and the folks who are around during the time of Jesus. And it's really interesting to me, brother, how we get all this knowledge and we get all this insight thanks to AI and people who are consciously aware of the past. But even in that, they still give us whitewashed imagery. I'm really struggling to understand
Mhm.
if you can tell that much truth, why can't you be truthful about what they
But the
look like?
yeah, say that again, Vin, because they'll be talking about black presence there, but then they show white images.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And this is what we need to challenge. This is what we need to challenge. But the way to challenge it is to uh, get as many researchers on the game finding authentic images. Do you see?
Mhm.
And making sure the general public is as aware of these images as they can possibly be, so that we can counter the images of Caesar Borgia, that is the ones that are all over the all over the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But here's the thing, too. You know, we first have to understand ourselves that, you know, for what you kind of relayed earlier, you know, it's a cover up, it's a conspiracy. And so you have to have that in your mind first, and understanding on why we're getting bits and pieces of this information. Like we said before, they have these books, like we want to refer to Timbuktu. And I've seen some of your documentaries where you talk about having books was a form of wealth even greater than gold. You know, some of the people in those empires, how they buried the books, and they, you know, so they have the information. The information is there, and it can be easily put out there. But that concerted effort of keeping things under wraps. So my question is, I wonder if you know how difficult it would be to add on to those particular things that you're talking about, because a lot of people, you know, because I think this blackness in this awakening is taking place around the globe, and you got people, you know, our good brother Browder and all of them having issues going into Egypt now. You know, some of the people down there where the Olmecs is they want to claim on and cling on it to that information is theirs and don't have a black presence. So people are now kind of pushing back because we're rising up and this information is coming out. So I just
yeah.
wonder
Let me
what's
answer
going
that,
to have
sir.
to take place. Mhm.
Let me answer that. Um, the internet age has changed the research game.
Mhm.
I was invited a couple of years ago to write a book called African Ancient Origins. And the big issue that used to hamper scholarship was not having access to the books and the materials, especially the old books, the old materials. But a lot of those are now online. And you can now search for these books, search for the material online, and get hold of imagery that many of us have never seen, texts that many of us have never seen. And it's easy now because it's much easier to search for this kind of material than it's ever been, where you can actually get the books and actually turn the pages, and you can do it digitally.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that I learned as I put together African ancient origins. All kinds of people visiting different parts of Africa and what they saw. Let me give you an example of a kind of discovery that I came across. I came across a travelogue by an American called George Bethune English, and he joined the Turkish Egyptian army, and he invaded what is today's Sudan. And that invasion took place somewhere around 1821, something like that. And every day, George Bethune English records more of what he saw as they invaded Sudan and as they were destroying the people in Sudan and destroying their monuments. And one of the things that George Bethune English says is every day he was coming across castles. Every day he was coming across water wheels. Did we know this?
No.
Now, I then did some more research to find out, did anyone draw these castles? Do you know that those drawings, those etchings actually exist?
Oh, okay.
Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And those drawings and those etchings actually existing, this changes the discourse, because now we can talk about this type of castle heritage and this water wheel heritage. What's one of the things that European racists say about black people? You never even invented the wheel. Yet water wheels are described throughout George English's account of visiting Sudan, destroying it. And then eventually he reached one of the capitals in Sudan. The capital city was called Sennar. And then his people destroyed Sennar, and then they entered the city. And George English talks about tripping over, wait for it, burnt brick and porcelain and marble. This is in his account. I can even find the account for you. And then they landed at the royal palace, and then he said he climbed the tower of the royal palace. Have a guess how many stories?
I was going to say World Palace. Go ahead. 4.
6.
Mm.
Yeah. Are we feeling this?
Yes, absolutely.
And getting hold
Well,
of
these primitive people now, these primitive people.
Yeah. So getting hold of George Bethune English's account was easy because we're now in the internet age. This was easy to find. This was not hard. And I've been able to add a whole bunch of imagery. Now, I'm not the only person doing this. There's an online guy called Isaac Samuels. He's doing very similar stuff. And because there's many of us doing this, someone will post a picture, somebody else will see it, somebody else will present some findings, somebody else will see it. There's a Nigerian guy called Mayowa Blades, and he's just finding imagery that none of us thought existed. Posting it, I'm able to see it. And so we are really changing how African history is being taught. So that the idea of a 6-story palace is now fact. Someone visiting an African city and tripping over burnt brick, porcelain, and marble is fact. Do you see?
Absolutely. And it's quite, it's quite amazing, and the cover up is real. It's profound, and I think what I used to give this analogy of you heard the phrase before, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And I'm saying that almost like the internet. With the invent of the internet, it's going to be the very thing, like you said, that's going to take them out or uncover all the lies that you've been telling, because it made the world smaller. The information is out there.
Yeah.
And I believe it's contributing heavily to the awakening of the youth in Africa these days, because the information is pouring out there. So the same very thing that you was using to try to control or to make money, as far as the internet is concerned, is going to be the very thing that's gonna crumble your chokehold that you have on knowledge, as far as the people is concerned.
Absolutely. So when I was researching when we ruled between 1999 and 2006, the biggest problem I had was finding imagery. So the dominant view in the Black communities was Professor Chancellor Williams's view, the destruction of Black civilization. We had civilization, but the evidence has all been destroyed. I found out that no, the evidence has not all been destroyed. Buildings are still standing. Fine art still exists. Jewelry still exists. Manuscripts still exist. But in 2006, getting hold of that imagery was very, very difficult and very, very expensive. Not now. Not now. And so being able to show examples of African greatness is much easier to do now, because just one, one click of a, yeah. And again, just to give you an example of the kind of thing that I'm dealing with, I used to do this with my school students during my school teaching days. Did you know that there's a palace in Tanzania that was built in the 1300s, and that palace has got an indoor swimming pool? So I asked them, Google it and see if you can find the swimming pool. The palace's name is Husuni Kubwa. It's in ruins, but you can still, if you know what you're looking for, find the swimming pool.
That's again, yeah, I'm taking you there, Vince. Yeah. So before we transition, oh, you got it there, bro. What you do? Okay, we're gonna do the happy piece. Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Bro.
Yes. So I just want to let folks know about the conference that's going to take place in Chicago. And it's going to happen from the 24th of July to the 26th of July. And our brother, Robin Walker, is going to be part of that. I guess it's bringing him back to the United States. He's only been here a couple of times, but this is significant enough for him to cross the Atlantic and come visit with us. So we're really enthused and happy that this is going to take place. So we want to invite you. You can come actually to the city, and if you're not able to make it physically, they will also have an opportunity for you to do it virtually. But you want to be there in person, as we've discussed on previous versions of the show. Forgive me for navigating through this. We got a lot going on at one time. But again, we just wanted you to know, Happy and the Shy Power and Unity Conference, Friday, July 24th through the 26th. And it's going to be on and popping, as they say. If you have just joined us, our guest is Robin Walker. He is a historian, author, and speaker. And we're going to invite you to visit his website. It is theblackhistoryman.com, theblackhistoryman.com. We'll put that up on the screen for you as well. Also, just want to thank our engineer for keeping us together, keeping us on point. We appreciate him, and we appreciate you for listening. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, do everything you can to make today your absolute best day. And we'll see you on the other side on YouTube, The Journey with Antonio, Vince Robinson, and 360 Info Network on Facebook. Peace, y'all.
Peace, peace, peace.
All right. So we're back with Robin Walker. Absolutely amazing conversation, giving us history as we should be getting it, and not the watered down version that is so prevalent these days. Brother Robin, they doing everything they can to make us forget over here. I mean, they burning books, taking books out the libraries, putting out misinformation and disinformation, and all through that, thanks to AI and people who have a certain level of consciousness, the truth is bubbling up to the surface, and we're remembering who we are, and we're discovering who we are, and we are empowering ourselves with that knowledge. So, I just like to recognize you for all of the hard work that you've done. The books that you've done are quite extensive, and because of people like you, we can be acquainted with and connected with a truth that will empower us. Because one of the ways that they keep us in submission is by keeping our knowledge of ourselves away from us. That's number one. But number two, they keep us in a complete state of survival mentality so that we're not thinking with our higher faculties, and we're just so concerned about where we're going to get the next crumbs from that we don't talk about the things that we can do to liberate ourselves from the oppression that we're dealing with.
Absolutely.
We talked about some of the division and the labels and whatnot that we are fixing to ourselves, but Brother Hamtonio started off the show in the first hour asking you about the Moors, and I think that there's not enough out there for us to really digest about the significance that the Moors had in what we call Europe, and the presence, the Black presence in Europe for all of those years. The fact that you can go places and see white folks kissing the feet of a Black woman, that's something that white folks don't want out there. So can you give us a little bit more on what the Moors actually accomplished, and how deep the roots of the Moorish existence affected the civilization of the earth as we know it now?
It's complicated because the textbooks say that the Moors were in Spain and Portugal. Yet, as we've seen, there are Moorish crests all over Europe. And who they are and what they're doing there, no one has an explanation yet. And when we find that explanation, then we can start adding chapters. Okay, so let's look at what we do know. All right, there were 4 Moorish dynasties that ruled in Spain. And Spain at the time included Portugal before Portugal broke away and became its own country. And one of the capitals that they ruled from was Cordova. And Cordova, the great mosque of Cordova, is still there. And the palace of Cordova, called the Medinet El Zahra Palace, is still there. Me and some of my friends, we spent 6 hours exploring the ruins of the Medinet El Zahra Palace. Now, because that was built during the first dynasty, we can't say for certain whether that was Black or not, because the first dynasty is ambiguous. Then we've got the second and third dynasties, one from West Africa and one were Black Moroccans. They ruled from a city called Seville, and the El Cazaba Palace in Seville is still there. It is off the charts. There's the only way I would describe it. It is off the charts. The Golden Tower, as it's called, is still there. And some of the bridges that were built during the Almoravid and Almohades period is still there. Moreover, the cathedral at Seville is a rebuild of the Great Mosque of Seville. And that was built during that same period where those 2 Black dynasties were in power. Off the charts. Absolutely off the charts in terms of exquisite detail and so forth. Now, there is in Granada a building called the Granada Science Museum. And what the building is about is telling the story of Islamic science and what role Islamic science played in Europe. And the Islamic science that they're talking about are the 4 Moorish dynasties, you see, and how much of that impacted in medieval Europe. Now, because it's covering the 4 dynasties, as I said, Dynasty 1 and Dynasty 4 is ambiguous, but Dynasty 2 and Dynasty 3 is unambiguously African. Yeah? And consequently, about half of that content relates to us. And so when we're talking about the different areas of science and technology, medicine. So, for example, you know the whole thing about doctors wearing white.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to the Moorish period. Music. One of the great musicians during the first dynasty was a musician called Ziryab. Ziryab was definitely black. His name in English translates as the Blackbird. Um, he was a style guru, not just a musician. And part of the evolution of what's going to become European classical music, he's in that history, he's in that heritage. Also, you know, the whole thing about having a meal where you have the starter to begin with, then the main course,
Mm-hmm.
then the sweet for dessert. He made that fashionable in the 9th century. Why we do that today goes back to him,
Mm-hmm.
Syria. Then we have the other areas like map making. Again, map making was a thing during the Moorish period. One of the great cartographers of the time was a Moor called El Idrisi, and he wrote a book called Kitab Rujar, Book of Roger. That book was written in 1153. Some people say 1154. It's a geography book. And you know the whole thing about the world being round as a sphere, divided into 360 degrees? He literally says that. And that the water, the rivers, the seas, are attached to the earth because of what he calls natural equilibrium. Nowadays, we would call it gravity. He literally says this.
Oh, and what time frame we
1153, 1154.
Okay. Mm.
Yeah. And this was at the time where you had some people in Europe believing that if you sail too far and too fast in one particular direction, you fall off the edge of the earth. No, this is in a Moorish geography book, Kitab Rujar. Yeah.
And you go ahead, my brother. Mm.
Then you've got other areas as well, such as metallurgy. During the entire Moorish period, the whole 4 dynasties, the metallurgists were black throughout the whole period. So if you see any, there's an African American scholar, Professor Vincent Taraku Farrar. He has that information. So anything that was made of metal, that was definitely made by a black metalsmith. So there's a lot that we can point to during the Moorish period. Then you've got the developments in agriculture, the developments in various sciences as well. You know that this is during the period where instead of using Roman numerals, people started using Hindu numerals. And the Hindu numerals were introduced into the Western world by Moorish mathematicians. And because those Moorish mathematicians wrote in Arabic, this is why Hindu numerals are called Arabic numerals. You know the numbers that we have right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Does that make sense? And there is a Moorish mathematician, and his name is El Hassar, which means the rush map maker. I've got a page of his manuscript where you can blatantly see 1 to 9 written in his own hand. Yes?
Well, our ancestors have talked about, and even biblically, not getting spiritual, because that ain't nothing but some stolen work as well, that our ancestors have talked about. But they talked about the time when all shall be unveiled, the truth coming out, and how long, that they're trying to suppress this particular information and the awakening. My good buddy Dr. Finch, who just transitioned, we went to Togo together, and he's talked about, our ancestors wrote it in stone because they knew that what was going to happen, and we was going to forget. He said, and he went on to say, it has gotten to the point that we forgot, so, but again, I would have to, if you believe in the creator, if you believe in the higher power, you know, there will have to be a ram in the bush, because it's been too much evil, too much lying, stealing, and I think that's what some of the things that this country is facing right now. Because I don't think you can have longevity if you believe in karma. I don't believe you have evil can't get longevity like that. You know what I mean? And I believe it's going to turn, and I believe it's some of the principles of nature, that is causing this uptick in some of this, things are being dug up and uncovered, unveiled, in order to awaken the people and restoring. And in Revelation, what it talks again, the first should be the last should be the first. It talked about the people being scattered and ridiculed all over the planet, but it being restored and things of that nature. So, um, I believe we're in this time frame right now. Your thoughts, Brother Robin?
Agree. Agree. I've independently come to exactly the same conclusion. So yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But did you want to touch into now your recent research, this whole Benin and Nigeria piece? You want to give us a little dose of that?
Yeah. What happened was I teach in what's called a Saturday school. And in that Saturday school, we have an opportunity to teach young people history. And somebody suggested, well, perhaps I could do something on the ancient history of Nigeria. And the result is I put some classes together. And those classes will cover things like, did you know an 8,000-year-old boat was discovered in Nigeria? The third oldest boat in the world. Did we know this? Did we know that iron technology, people used to think that started in the Middle East, but the first iron working site is now believed to be Nsukka in eastern Nigeria, round about 2600 something BC. We used to, when it came to things like manuscripts and that type of thing, we used to think that manuscripts are something that only existed in Timbuktu, and there weren't any manuscripts anywhere else. Scholars are now looking at thousands of manuscripts that have survived. Some of them all written by African scholars, but some of them are written in Arabic, some are written in Fulfulde, which is the language of the Fulani, and some of them are written in Hausa. And what's happening is, as people are examining those manuscripts, a scientific history of the Nigeria region is becoming more and more evident. And so there's an article which I'm checking out right now, and the article is called The Significance of Astronomy in the Ancient Arabic Manuscripts of Northern Nigeria and Their Preservation. And what the article is doing is naming the different African scholars and what papers they wrote on astronomy. And these papers were written in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, where they are chopping up astronomy and calculations and calendars. And this is the kind of research that they were doing. Did we know any of this? We all thought it was Timbuktu, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're finding out it wasn't just Timbuktu, other people were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my discoveries when I did the book Ancient African Origins is that there were people in East Africa that were doing this too. People know about the manuscripts in Ethiopia, they know about the manuscripts in Sudan. There was a kingdom called the Adal Sultanate, which was centered on an Ethiopian city called Harar. And not only do these manuscripts exist, people digitized them. And I've actually scanned some of these manuscripts. Same period, 15th century to the 18th century. Yeah. And so, what it now means is when we are talking about our scientific and technological history, we can now start putting manuscripts into the discussion and starting to name those scientists, name those scholars who have written on this topic. Another thing, just before I shut up, I was in Ghana a few weeks ago, and I met a professor. The professor's in America, Professor Tundi. He's in America, but he's Nigerian. And he said, there's a public intellectual that I need to know about, Nana Asmayu. And I wanted to know, what have you got on Nana Asmayu? And he sent me the link to the content. This was a woman between 1793 and 1864, a public intellectual in what is today Nigeria, who created an all-female education network called the Yan Taru. Are we feeling this?
Yes.
An all-female education network. Moreover, as I was digging into her stuff, her and her father, Usman Dan Fodio, wrote a book called Sufi Women. And in that book, it names 37 great women who practice Sufi Islam. Yeah? Okay, now here's the thing. 7 of those women were local women from her region, which on the modern map would be Nigeria. And she says, as she's writing this stuff out, and for brevity, we're mentioning 7 because we could have mentioned 100 more.
Wow. Okay.
100 more learned women before her time.
Wow.
And her time is, she's born 1793. Are we feeling this?
Yes.
People feeling this?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm feeling it.
Yes. It's crazy. This is crazy, because it's just, I mean, it's been a real effort, for people to try to keep this information out, because when you start going in that area, and I heard you speak on it, and I did a little, research on it, the Great Wall of Benin and all the rest of those things, and that's those civilizations, the Songhay, the Ghanaian Empire and the Malian Empire, and all those things that were going on. Let me say this one thing here. My first trip to Ghana. So we had a tour guide, and so he was taking us up to Kumasi. So we stopped at this one shrine, because at that time the Discovery Channel was coming on, and they were having programs like, who are the ancient Egyptians? Where did they at? Where did they go? And all this type of stuff. So it was a big talk about this, like in 1996 or something. Who are these Egyptian people? And so we stopped by the shrine, and the keeper of the shrine comes out to greet us and talking. So we give him a little dash here and there. He tell us the history. The first thing out of his mouth was how they migrated from Egypt to Ghana. I said, whoa. What did you just say, my brother? He had the history down on the migration of the sub-Saharan all the way to, and another brother was there doing research. He was talking about and trying to write a book saying the ancient Egyptians are there because some of the same name, cities, ceremonies, and things like that. And I'm saying to myself, I'll be doggone, they're on TV talking about where the Egyptians at. Have you ever asked the people on where the ancient Egyptians at? And lastly, they never, when they show Egypt, they African Americans over here, because we've been taught to look at them people as, they got animal heads and all this old type of stuff. So they're evil. Don't pay no attention to them, because the pastors turn our heads away from, Egypt in that regard. But you never hear them talk about Ma'at and the coming forth by day and those particular things. You never see that on Discovery Channel, or they never talk about that. And people believe in the martial arts. You're showing hand blocks on the temples and those things like that. It's just it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
And I don't think we keep that covered up for so long. Go ahead, Vince.
And to tack onto that, we're told that Yeshua, or the people who people call Jesus, actually spent years in Kemet, or Egypt as we know it. But Brother Robin, I want to come back to what you mentioned about Ethiopia, and this is kind of tying everything together, because one of the biggest secrets on the planet right now is the fact that there were other books of the Bible, the Ethiopian books, and there was something in those books that had to be tossed out in 325 because the folks in the Council of Nicaea thought that folks didn't need to know about that. So you've had Africans who were practicing Christianity for years. We can actually say
Their
centuries
version.
now.
Their version.
Their version of it, because that's where it was actually born. But the world has a Europeanized idea of Christianity that really takes away from the power that we have within ourselves. So could you talk about the deliberate I guess absence of the Ethiopian narrative from the religion that has basically dominated the planet for the past 2,000 years?
Yeah, unfortunately, Christianity in the Western version supports European dominance, supports psychological dominance, and it is intellectually and spiritually destructive to non-European people. But that doesn't mean that that is the total history of Christianity with us, because of course, Ethiopia, as you rightly say. So there used to be an empire in Africa called Aksum, and Aksum is on a modern map, Ethiopia and Eritrea. And this is one of the world's oldest Christian countries. Some people say it was the first. Some people say it was the second. Let's assume it was the second. The first one then becomes Armenia. Armenia doesn't exist as an independent country, but on a modern map, it would be within Turkey. So whichever be the case, Ethiopia is probably the second oldest Christian country on earth, where it became the state religion then, and it's still the state religion now. All right, so they have books in the Bible that other Christians don't have. Yeah, so the complete book of Enoch, they've got the complete book of Enoch, nobody else has. And there's 2 or 3 more books that they have that nobody else has seen. Their religion isn't really what we would today call Christianity. It's what we would today call Judeo-Christianity. If you follow the traditional religion, or what's now become their traditional religion, you will follow both Judaism and Christianity. So if you're in Ethiopia, and I can attest to this, don't be thinking you're going into a shop and buying pork, right? It doesn't exist. And everything is kosher. Yeah, again, because it's in the culture, they don't have to call it kosher. It just is. And so they follow the Old Testament fasts. They follow the New Testament fasts. They basically, their Christianity is really Judeo-Christianity. And because their Christianity is either the oldest or the second oldest in the world, there is a case for those of us who are Christians to reconsider, because what are we following? If we're not following the original, then what are we following? So there's a case for where that could be the case. Also, me and my team, we were able to visit the holy city of Lalibela. The city of Lalibela is the city of underground churches. Are you aware of this? You're not aware? Okay.
Where's this at? Ethiopia?
This is Ethiopia. Google it. Lalibela, Lalibela. It's a medieval city of underground churches carved out of the ground by hammer and chisel. And these churches were carved somewhere between 1181 AD and 1221 AD.
Okay.
We were able to visit that site, and it was a shock, to be honest. Seeing the genius of what Africans had done 800 years ago, carving buildings out of the rock of the mountains by hammer and chisel. And that site is still a site of pilgrimage, so people from all over Ethiopia visit. There it is. Yeah, those buildings are all underground. Yeah, they're all underground. Can you see? Okay, freeze that picture, sir. The top of that church is ground level. And then everything that you're looking at has been carved 4 stories below ground level. That's the inside of the Church of Mary. That is the Church of the Redeemer of the World. That is the Church of St. George. Yeah, all carved by hammer and chisel. That one's the Church of Mary. This one is the Church of Abelibanos. Are we feeling this?
Yes. Because
Again, this should be common knowledge everywhere that this holy city of underground churches carved by hammer and chisel in medieval times, everyone should know this.
Because I remember seeing some information. I think the first time I seen something like that was due to our good brother Ashra Kwesi. I believe it was Ashra Kwesi that talked about how they go to church. They was like climbing up.
Oh, they do that as well, but this one you have to go underground. Yeah, this one you have to go underground.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you look at those pictures where there are people in the picture and they're right next to the foot of the church, they are 12 meters underground. See that person right up against? Those people are underground, trust me.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, you see the surface. Yeah, up top there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But Brother Robin, these are primitive people. These people, for the images they showed us since we were kids was, bone in the nose, didn't know math, didn't know geometry, algebra, none of that. Didn't have any of those kind of skills. And this man perpetuated this lie for so long. It's amazing. Just simply amazing.
And this is the kind of the reason why I do what I do. To make sure that people are aware of this type of content, so that when people come with that stuff, you've got something to counter it with.
Well, Brother Robin, go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up and ask, what do you think would be different if the masses of people had a greater awareness of the significance of those books that were left out and the message that is in those books that was kept away from them?
This is what would be significant, because you would now see Africans as contributors to knowledge. That changes everything. And the self-respect that you have when you see your people were contributors to knowledge, your people were contributors to how people think, your people contributed ideas, and you are a descendant of those people that made those things happen. Changes everything.
Yeah. I'm in total agreement. If you feel better about yourself, you do better about yourself.
Another thing too is people of non-African heritage would have a little bit more respect for us.
I agree.
One of the reasons they can get away with disrespecting us is because they believe that we are contributors to nothing.
Yep. Yeah.
Except global savagery.
And it's amazing. What I wrote in my book that talked about how we give credence or even praise to people using our stuff and don't even know we don't even know it's our stuff.
Absolutely.
And they using our stuff, and it was brilliant. It was a great thing that they did. You know what I mean? It's horrible, but I think some of the things are changing for those who have ears to hear and eyes to see who want this particular information. Unfortunately, I've learned in my journey that everybody ain't gonna get it, you
Yeah.
know. And I've been told by some of my mentors, and it even speaks a little bit in the Bible about how you cast your seeds or your pearls. You know what I mean? And but it's a very difficult, it's very difficult to do that when you're trying to awaken our people in reference to this. But we have to come to the knowledge of understanding that a lot of this stuff was purposeful. It was purposeful. People put hid information away from you and things like that. So I would just hopefully think that would encourage you, like how it did me as a young age. It would encourage me to uncover, well, what else did they lie about? What else did they not tell the truth about? Because they'll give you a long line of history of cover up and lies. So what make you think any of the information that you get is worth, it's all worth researching. That's the point I'm trying to say.
Brother Antonio, I have to acknowledge our co-producer in the house with us, Felicia Harden. I'm sure that is her, and she's posting some comments and some questions. Yeah. So let's answer her question, Brother Robin. She asks, are people still attending these churches? And she's speaking of the Ethiopian churches.
Yeah, absolutely. They're places of pilgrimage. So people will travel for miles to visit those churches. People still pray in those churches. Hell, when we visited, we prayed in those churches.
Wow. Yeah?
Now, what happens is the tradition is if you visit those churches, you're supposed to stay till 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And yeah, they do that. So you've got to, if you're female, you've got to have your head covered. If you're male and female, you've got to take your shoes off. And there's a whole respect thing that happens. But yeah, people will stay in those churches till the early morning. Yes, it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Okay. And to follow up that, obviously being a scholar, what gives you your credibility is your books. But the issue that we're facing right now is we're in a place where literacy doesn't have the same value that it had before. We're looking at generations of folks now, generations of folks that can't read a paragraph, much less a sentence, So it seems as though this battle, this war of the minds is so prevalent that it's keeping people away from knowledge. How do you, as a scholar and someone who is basically entrenched in words and language, how do you combat the ignorance that's being pushed on us by pushing us away from literacy and more into electronic stimulation?
My thing is use the electronic stimulation as well. So I have to shout out one of my colleagues, Mr. Andrew Mohammed, and he was London based, but now he's Gambia based. And he teaches Black history. And he is the person that set the example to all of us that when you're teaching, you make your teaching multimedia. So he has film clips in his presentations, he's got images in his presentations. And so by making it multimedia, you can make it as accessible as possible. So the kind of thing that Professor Van Sertima used to do back in the day, stand with his microphone and talk. That's not how we do it now. Now there's a whole multimedia thing. So it's more like a performance, and we can then engage people visually. We can engage people in what they hear, engage people by getting them to watch these film clips and so on. And we make that part of the education. Moreover, I'm a firm believer that you can use YouTube to acculturate people. So the things that, for example, if you're talking from an African American perspective, the great artists, Art Blakey, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Cannonball Adderley, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, their performances are all online. Do you see? And so when it comes to getting people acculturated to real culture, it's actually quite easy to do if you point people to the correct online sources. And so for me, while the internet age comes with its downside, it also comes with its upside.
I see.
Interesting. One
Yeah.
other thing I wanted to ask you about, I saw a video earlier in the week, and it was 2 minutes of people from the Caribbean and African countries that were denigrating Black people from America, saying that Black people in America don't have a culture, and it was just they don't want to do anything with us. They're looking down at us for whatever reason. But then you look at the history of this country and our involvement in the evolution of this country and the fact that, yes, we do have a culture, but we have a need to, as Marcus Garvey pointed to us, and even more recently, and I know folks feel a certain kind of way about him, but Umar Johnson and others, Dr. Africana, Chiambori Quao, that advocate for this concept of Pan-Africanism, which would mean that in essence we're all one family, despite the fact that we may have different cultures, different languages, different situations. And I guess the question is, in my mind, is based on all the division and the misunderstanding and the miscommunication, what can we do to unify us as a people so that we can deal with the common denominator, and the common denominator is a system of pseudo white supremacy and racism.
Yeah, let me answer that. The Caribbean people that speak negatively about African Americans and the African people that speak negatively about African Americans are idiots. And African Americans should not take those people as representative. They're just idiots. The reality is, African Americans set the template for Black culture all over the world. So for me, growing up in London and growing up in Milton Keynes, when we were watching television, the Black experience we saw was the African American experience. So we watched Shaft, we watched Cosby Show, we watched The Different Strokes, all that kind of stuff we grew up on. When the Jackson 5 cartoons came out, you remember those?
Yeah.
We watched them ourselves. We watched them in London. We watched them in Milton Keynes. When it comes to the Black British struggle for equality, African Americans supported us. Yeah. At one time, if you were the main shopping street in London is called Oxford Street. That's where all the big shops are and that type of thing. Back in the day, if you were Black, you couldn't work on Oxford Street. There was a campaign to fight that. And that campaign was called CARD, Campaign Against Racial Discrimination. It was led by Dame Jocelyn Barrow. Dame Jocelyn Barrow met with Dr. King. You follow me? There was the Bristol bus boycott of 1963, where if you were Black, you were brown, you could not be employed working on the buses in the city of Bristol. There was a bus boycott that was led by Dr. Paul Stevenson. And when Dr. Stevenson was alive, he was asked, where did you get the idea from? He said he got it from Jesse Jackson and the Reverend King. You follow me? Loads of Black community centers in Britain are named after Malcolm X. Loads of Black community centers in Britain are named after Muhammad Ali. So African Americans set the template. So don't let any idiots tell you otherwise. They're not representative of Black Caribbeans. They're not representative of Black Africans.
Yeah, because when you go ahead, Vince. You want to add to that?
No, I'm just agreeing with him, and I'm so glad he put it so succinctly, because that was exactly what I was thinking. It's like you really don't know what you're talking about, but it was just person after person after person, and it's like how can you say that we don't have a culture when you in Jamaica or you down there walking with your pants sagging, talking about we, we
Good,
don't
bad,
have.
or indifferent.
Yeah, and
It's
because
infectious.
I'm the Black History Man, my job is to trace connections.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to trace Jamaican music, reggae, well, now it's dancehall, and we can trace it back to the previous period with reggae, the previous period when it was rocksteady, and the previous period when it was ska. Ska is a music that came around about 1959 in Jamaica. Ska is an African American, excuse me, a Jamaican derivative of African American rhythm and blues and soul. And the Jamaican musicians will tell you they were listening to Ray Charles. They will tell you they were listening to James Brown. They will tell you they were listening to the Isley Brothers. They will tell you they were listening to Louis Jordan. Do you see? Yeah. And so when it comes to the influences between different Black peoples, those influences are the arrows point in all kinds of directions.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest sources of inspiration is African Americans.
Yeah. See, it's well, you get you when you travel, you see a remnants of our stuff all over the planet.
Absolutely.
Not only Black folks, it's all up in Japan and all the rest of the places as well. And when
Yeah.
I believe it, when you talk about Marcus Garvey, he talks about who he was reading. I believe it was Booker T or
Booker T. Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Booker T. Yeah, he got his stuff, and from Booker T. So it was a lot of that going on as well. And it's just, and I think one other thing that I guess is important for Black folks to know, because because they look at us and we look at ourselves and we look at them and we see how enriched they are and how they enrich themselves at this point. And it's important to know that it came from theft. it came from theft, all over the place. Right now, I heard you talk about how our stuff is sitting in London museums and how valuable these artifacts is right now. And that theft is going all over the planet. Even here, how they have stole our stuff and trying to make it theirs and making money on our talents all over and enriching themselves. But just like how Africa is going to do, they walking on resources and money, but can't partake in the fruits of those resources. So it's imperative that we understand that our present condition is due to the fact that we deal with a bunch of greedy people. It's almost like Dr. Henry Clark said, the man don't believe in fractions, he want it all.
Yes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is what we're up against.
Yes.
But one of the things that has consoled me is if you look at the history of the 20th century and the different people that have made their moves, almost all of them were Pan-Africanists or civil rightists in one way or another. Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
There aren't that many people who are great in our 20th century history that weren't Pan-Africanists or civil rightists or something. They were one or the other. Yeah. And so that history shows that while people were doing great things, they were keeping the struggle alive as well. Yeah. Just to give you an example, the South African pianist Abdullah Ibrahim died a few
weeks ago.
Yeah, a few weeks ago. And his getting international recognition, Duke Ellington has something to do with that. Getting him out of the country. You got to remember, he's in apartheid South Africa. Do you see? And so putting people like him on the international stage. Yeah. So when it comes to the kinds of actions that move our people forward, a disproportionate number of those people were people that were about it, not just because they were great as people, but because they actually believed in either moving us forward on a civil rights tip, on a human rights tip, or on a Pan-African tip.
No, that's amazing.
Brother Robin, I'm curious. I'm acquainted with the civil rights struggle here in America as it relates to us, but I'm sure that there is probably a similar situation where you are in the UK. Can you talk about the struggle for rights there as history, and talk about where things are now with respect to how Black folk exist in England?
Okay. Black people are stopped being slaves in Britain at the end of the 18th century. There was something called the Somerset case, and the person responsible was Lord Justice Mansfield. But just because we weren't slaves doesn't mean we were equal. Yeah. And as Britain built its empire, they found ways of dealing with its colored citizens, and the way they did it was something called the color bar. Now, what the color bar did, it was nowhere near as bad as segregation, but it did mean that there were jobs that you could not apply for, let alone get. It did mean that the discrimination against Black children in schools and being sent to educationally subnormal schools was a thing. It did mean that the police hunting Black people, and the word hunting is the correct word, was a thing. It did mean that being discriminated against in terms of getting accommodation was a thing. It did mean that there were pubs, public houses, what you would call bars, that a Black person could not enter, nightclubs that we couldn't go to, all of that stuff. And the struggles to move that forward, there was something called the League of Colored Peoples that was started by Dr. Harold Moody in the 1930s. And this was the beginnings of the modern civil rights thing. You had a woman called Claudia Jones. Claudia Jones was actually in America. She was from Trinidad, but she was actually in America. And the American government blacklisted her and threw her out of the country. And she came to London and organized our people here. And she's responsible for what's now become Notting Hill Carnival. The point of Carnival was political, bringing Black and white together. You had the 1963 Bristol bus boycott, which I've talked about. You had the 1964 to 1969 CARD campaign. You had various people fighting discrimination in London Transport, British Rail. Yeah, and we can name some of the campaigns that kind of thing happened. Then you had the 1969, 1970, the Mangrove Nine, 9 Black people. Some of them were Black Panthers. Yes, we had a Black Panther movement. Were arrested by the police on trumped up charges. And that became a major thing. First time police corruption and anti-Black was put on the agenda. Then in the 1970s, you had the rise of the fascist organization, the National Front, and you had racist skinheads beating up Black people. Now, the skinhead movement didn't start off as racist. It actually started off as white people interested in our culture. By the mid-70s, they switched. And you had various campaigns such as Rock Against Racism between 1976 and 1982, the battle for Notting Hill Carnival. And there's a whole bunch of things that you can put together to write civil rights, Black British history. Now, the main person that teaches this, there's a London gentleman called Tony Warner. He runs a company called Black History Walks, and he has made the Black British civil rights struggle his niche. And then by 1987, we had the first Black MPs elected to the lower house of Parliament.
87?
1987, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we're late, but yeah. But where we are now, I don't know if you're aware, but Britain's deputy prime minister is black.
Okay.
David
Okay.
Lammy. So you might want to look him up, David Lammy. He's going to be out of a job soon, so you better look him up soon. But David Lammy is Britain's deputy prime minister.
Yeah.
Wow.
Has there been a pushback on voting there as it is here? Because
No,
they're doing
no.
everything that they can to keep us out of the polls.
No, this is what they're doing instead. What they're doing is mobilizing the white working classes against us, not by stopping us from voting, but by encouraging them to vote and to vote for the far right.
Wow.
And the far right is organizations led by Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe. And yeah, there's been a major. Now, the main reason why they haven't been able to stop us from voting is any laws that hit us will hit the white working classes as well.
I see.
That's why they don't want to do that yet, unless they find a way of specifically targeting us.
Yes.
And if they hit the white working classes, then the support that the far right are hoping for isn't going to materialize. Do you see?
Well, let me ask you a question then. So I'm listening to this, and I see the threat. You know, they're worried about black folks coming together and doing something. So I know, as far as the planet is concerned, I just want to know how deep it is over where you're at right now when we're talking about demographics and population. Over here in America, you know, they got an issue with, you know, Barbara Walters wrote a book called How Civil War Started. And one of the things she said that she found out across the planet when doing the research was, you know, a group of people see the power outgoing, they tend to muster up this movement for change. So I know over here in America, you know, we took, as far as elections is concerned, we took Georgia, we almost took Texas. You know, they're having the problems with, you know, the gay rights, the black rights, the Jews owning all the money and everything. So is there a threat far as, you know, I did see some documentation about a threat far as the population of the Muslim community in Europe. So is they feeling that same little?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But don't get it twisted. Yeah. Anyone that hates the Muslims also hates us. Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference is that it is easier to mobilize openly against the Muslims.
Yes.
But but trust me, we know what's going on. We're next. Right. Right. We're clear about that. We're next. And this is why the threat by these two far right-wing parties, we're taking the threat seriously.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you not to hold you too long there, brother Walker, but I want to get your take on this in my ideology or what I'm thinking, because you know I posed this question one time to Dick Gregory when he was on the show when he was alive, and I look at our greats, you know, our greats, the Martin Luthers, the Marcuses, and the Meggers, and you know, some of our African brothers, you know, the Kwames, Steve Bikos, and all these folks. It seemed like they kept the torch alive for an appointed time. Because, you know, I asked Brother Gregory, you know, how does it feel? Or like I would say, let me give it on my level. You know, I've been preaching a lot of Black history and stuff for a long time. So you know how you would feel. Just watch when your thoughts come to fruition, you be, I told you so. I told you so. To watch out for this. So, so appointed time that, you know, how important is time, because it seems like to me that these people were put in place to keep the torch lit for an appointed time frame. And so your thoughts on that? You know, that's what I feel, because I see, you know, you see the movement, you see the information, you see the awakening of some of our youth, you see Africa coming to its own, you know. So it's time to put all that information and stuff together into a certain movement to blow open or to get some legs upon this movement. And so I'm saying, is timing a real thing there? You know, is it something that we should look at?
I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know if people run with the torch for a certain amount of time. This is what I've seen. I've seen something a little bit different, and that's this. If you set up something and it becomes an organization of some sort, and the organization lasts for a certain amount of time, you will produce disciples.
Okay.
And those disciples will continue to exist. And they will make moves long after you've gone because they're your disciples. Now, those people might not necessarily be talking about what they do, but they will be doing it. And I've seen this on the ground myself. Yeah. So let me give you an example of what I mean. When it comes to people that are politically active, people that I know that are politically active, doing things, you usually find that they come out of an organization of some sort.
Okay.
Where there was some training that the input went into that person. The person didn't come out of nowhere. So let me give you an example. People were talking about the Ghanaian government moving on reparations at the United Nations a few months ago. You heard about that?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What most people don't know is the story behind it. The story behind it was the Accra Reparations Conference in 2023. I was at that conference. So the Ghanaian government were primed to move on that. Do you see?
I see.
So who am I? Who are the people that were at the conference? A lot of the people that were at the conference were people that had been schooled by earlier generations of reparationists. Do you
Gotcha.
see?
Mm-hmm.
So the reparation movement in Britain, one of the founders of it was a black British MP called Bernie Grant. Some of his direct disciples were at that conference. Do you see?
Gotcha.
Yeah. The person that started the whole reparations debate as we have it today is probably Queen Mother More. Yeah. Queen Mother More, as you know, goes back to the Elijah Muhammad days, goes back to the Marcus Garvey days.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Queen Mother More had an influence on an African American that I know, Makeda Coston, and Makeda Coston was one of the people that guided my career. Do you see? So things that don't look connected are actually more connected than you might think.
Okay.
And people making moves are usually more connected. So when something happens, don't think that came out of the blue. Think about the input that other people already put in to get that kind of output.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, Brother Robin, I'm curious about your thoughts on the direction that Africa is moving in with the energy that's being brought by someone like Ibrahim Traore. You know, traditionally, we've seen manipulation of countries through colonialism and basically greasing the palms of leadership to get resources out of the continent. But now you have a leader who's saying, wait a minute, hold up. We're not going to continue to be exploited that way, and doing it in such a way that empowers not only the government, but the people, because they get a benefit from this new direction and leadership. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective and your connection to countries in Africa and visits and consciousness about that, do you see any traction picking up where we could see a reversal of what traditionally has been leadership from Europe?
Let me answer that. Big up to Ibrahim Traore, big up to Goita, big up to all the other people making change in what used to be French West Africa. Yeah. So they are making change, and big up to them. But let me explain the issues facing African governments. To be an African politician, you have to be a very smooth operator. You are going to have to lie. You are going to have to deceive, even if you're doing good for the people. Because unfortunately, that's the politics of how politics works. Yeah. And what happens is you've got to remember you are dealing with very, very poor countries. And when your country is very poor, it's hard to raise taxes. And consequently, the government departments they're not really stocked with money like that. Yeah. And consequently, what a government department can do isn't like, what the United States government department can do. Do you see? Because they don't have resources like that. And so consequently, you are going to have to wheel and deal to get money to get things done. Do you see? And a lot of it will look to us like kissing European butt. Yeah, it will look to us like that, but you have to be extremely strategic if you're an African politician. Yeah. Now, it's good to see half a dozen countries that were formerly under the control of France not kissing butt. I've spent a little bit of time in Ethiopia, where that's clearly a government not kissing butt. But the ones that do, I cut them a certain amount of slack because I know what wheeler dealing you have to do if you want to get things done.
Yeah. That's an honest answer, and I appreciate it because it really does put things in a realistic perspective. We would think in a perfect world they could just say, okay, well, you can't have no more diamonds, you can't have no more coltan, no more cobalt for you. But the things that are required for them to take that position aren't in place, and so you're really jeopardizing what little you have. And one of the things that's going on right now, and we talk about this all the time, is just the reconfiguration of the world's economic system is happening right now as things move to the blockchain. And in a way, it's equalizing things. So, for instance, in a country like Kenya, you have the M-Pesa, and so people can make transactions digitally using their phones, and they're not confined to a fiat currency that might be problematic for whatever reason. So we're seeing a change in the world economic system, and we're also seeing that these economies have been controlled by agreements from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And they come to the rescue after a crisis has happened, and then they say, well, we'll give you this money, but then there's a price to pay for that money, and it leaves you in debt and giving up the control that you have over your country and your resources, and that can't be changed overnight. But I'm trusting, and I'm sure you probably have a similar perspective, that at some point we'll be able to create a reversal of the status quo and position African countries to be far more sovereign and far more in control of the resources that they have, so that they can, like in Nigeria, for instance, one of the richest black men on the planet decided that he was going to create an oil refinery.
Yeah.
And so now that country is poised to benefit from the fact that it exists, and and he's getting pressure to allow competition, even though it's not in his interest to have competition, because that's going to lower the price of oil and push back on the profits that could benefit his company and the people. So
that's right.
They just don't want a black person to do it. It's okay for a certain handful of them to own and control everything, but again, they want to get into the game. That's how it's always been, so exploitation.
So what are your thoughts about that, Brother Robin?
Have you been following the story of the GERD, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam?
I have not. I've just caught an inkling of it, but not fully dove into it.
The Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, has described it as the greatest achievement of the black race. Yeah.
Mm.
They self-funded it. They built it themselves. It wasn't just Ethiopian engineers; they were Ugandan engineers. Yeah. Um, and many people are talking about the lessons that can be learned when you are able to raise the money by issuing bonds to your own people. So it becomes their sovereign project. Do you see?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so it's a massive feat of engineering, and it's an extraordinary feat of engineering. But the most important thing is who funded it. And the funding appears to have been raised by the Ethiopians themselves.
Mm.
And that will set an example for what other African countries could do, and will set an example for what other Caribbean countries could do. Yeah, so look it up, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Well, we mentioned that guy again. He's doing so many things over in Bikini Faso. I, yeah, I think he's putting together a big irrigation issue because agriculture, being able to feed yourself, is one of the most important things to being able to do that instead of
Absolutely.
importing all your food. So he's got a big project going as far as that is concerned, growing agriculture out in the desert and extracting water. So those basic things like that is goes very far as rebuilding an infrastructure as far as country is concerned.
True
So
say.
so in closing, my good brother, oh, you bring something up? Yes, that's where we were going in reference to this
We're
conference.
locked in, Lynn. We
Yeah,
locked in.
yeah.
Okay.
In reference to this conference, we you're coming over here, and you're gonna be accompanied. We want to let people to know that some of the partners and that you're gonna be hooked up with, brother Watkins, Susan Tata, Dr. Frazier, Diana Bello, Joshua Mapunga, good. There we go, brother Infiduci, brother Jabari. All this knowledge is sitting here, brother Muhammad, Nuri Muhammad, all these brothers and sisters in one place in this conference. It's truly amazing. If you can't get there, at the very least, uh, uh, do some streaming as well. And my good brother Vince then don't know this yet, but and if you're interested in vending, or if you're interested in being a part of the souvenir book. So actually, I talked to brother Grant, and 360 info is going to be in the souvenir book. So if you can't make it and you want to support this, go to the website and click on if opportunities or the streaming information, happyfilm.com. And if you just want your business to be a part of the souvenir book and support what we're doing, because it's basically just what our good brother Walker just said. The Ethiopians funded that themselves. So now you are in control of that because you funded it yourself. So it's the same thing here. The conferences should be going on like this every quarter in the United States right now. So again, we need to fund our own, and we putting all this talent in one place, and also some of these, Infiduci, our good brother Infiduci, is going to be on the show on the 18th and talk a little bit about it and share some knowledge with us here on 360. And the Dr. Milana Karanga, who started Kwanzaa, all in one place. So get your tickets if set up your reservations if you want to go there and be there in person. We got to get it. It's the time. We got to cut off the football, the basketball, or whatever else that you're doing, because this is an interesting time period where we are right now, and we have to get this knowledge, and we have to take advantage of this group of people coming at one time and imparting good information.
And I'll add to that by saying this is our version of the World Economic Forum. This is our think tank. This is our
Yes,
scholars,
yes,
So Unfortunately, I have something else I have to do that weekend. It's a mission. It's a family mission. Very important to the family that I be there. But you do yourself a great favor by being there in person and being part of history. This is going to
Yes.
be a historic gathering of intellectuals and creators and creatives that will be in the conference that weekend. And I'm sure that if you attend, you will benefit greatly. So can't say enough about the importance of being there and the importance of supporting. Also, just want to thank our dear brother, Robin Walker, for being on with us today. You know, I was reading through his biography at the top of the show, and I was blown away by all he's been able to accomplish as a scholar. It's definitely in him because he can just give you these facts and these figures and these references off the top of his
Top of
head.
his
It's like
head.
a walking library, you know.
Mhm.
So we owe it to ourselves to expose ourselves to that knowledge, that wisdom, that understanding. And so if you come to the conference on those dates, you'll be able to witness it in person. And perhaps this can be a start, you know, Brother Robin. We'd like to have you back occasionally so you can bring
Certainly.
us up to date on what's going on with you and give us more good knowledge and information. So any parting words before we conclude the broadcast?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on your show. It's a pleasure. Seriously.
Mhm. Pleasure.
Hope people enjoyed what we did, and if you want to study with me and the kind of thing that I do, my company is called theblacksecret.co.uk, and the whole program is multimedia classes where we're taking you all the way from A to Z, A to Z, when it comes to ancient, medieval, and modern Black history.
Mm. That's
Okay. I put that up there for the
sure.
benefit of those who may not have gotten it. And again, I thank our dear sister Felicia Harden. She's really been on the case, amplifying what's going on with the Hoppy Film movement and with our brother Robin. And again, we appreciate you for being with us today. Brother Hamtonio, any parting words before we conclude?
I'll just say stay vigilant, and we need to, definitely keep plugged into this because it's going to all come out in the wash, and we got to understand that people are diligently stopping us from getting this knowledge because what 20, 10, 20, 50 years from now, what history books are we going to be seeing and reading? So we got to
Yeah.
hold on to this, and that's why it's so important to lock in on what's going on in Chicago because folks are trying to get rid of our information, and we laid that out today and showing you that these covert and overt efforts that are going out, has been going out and all over the planet to snuff out and then blackout and to create a blackout on Black information.
Yes. And I will add to that that we are writing history. What we did today is historic. And folks gathering in that Chicago land on that weekend, that will be history too. So we have an opportunity to make history as well. If you're on with us, don't forget to like, send us a comment, subscribe to our channel, support the platform. We really appreciate your engagement and you being with us. And as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your absolute best day. Peace, everyone.